Since it came out in 2007, Apple has sold more than 2.3 billion iPhones. This has made Apple the biggest player in the market and made the product stand out. They have a huge 75% share of the market, even beating Samsung in sales. However, there's a darker side that Apple prefers to keep hidden. Was Steve Jobs truly the visionary and virtuous figure he was portrayed to be? What kind of father was he to his children? And are the products we love so much manufactured ethically by workers in China? These are the questions that Apple would rather have you forget about. Our story begins in 1976 where two college dropouts Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak created Apple Computer Company with Ronald Wayne, not knowing that this was the first step to a $3 billion company, with shockingly Ronald Wayne leaving Apple after only just 12 days and Steve Wozniak leaving Apple in '83 because he was losing interest in the day-to-day running Apple computers. With too much controversy with the new president of Apple, Steve left Apple in '85, starting his own computer Next Software and buying Pixar from George Lucas, who was responsible for making the Star Wars films. With Jobs buying Pixar, he not only changed the tech industry but also the animation industry, if not the film industry, with films like Toy Story, A Bug's Life and Monsters Inc. and Finding Nemo. Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, making a big impact on the company, with people saying that he was the responsibility for reviving Apple. And on June 29, 2007, history changed forever.
And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
Try to build products that we think are really wonderful and that people might want. And sometimes we're right and sometimes we're wrong. But I think we're going to hit a grand slam with this.
The introduction of the first modern smartphone, which included internet capabilities, laid the foundation for the rise of social media. This was largely due to the inclusion of a camera in the iPad Touch, which enabled users to capture and share photos, ultimately transforming the way we interact and connect online. Steve Jobs and his high school sweetheart, Brennan, were 23-year-olds when the daughter Lisa was born in 1978, just 2 years after the launch of Apple. Lisa later released a book called Small Fry in 2018, which explores her personal experience and relationship with her famous father. In her books, in the spring of 1978, when my parents were 23, my mother gave birth to me on the French Robert farm in Oregon, with the help of 2 midwives. The labor and delivery took 3 hours start to finish. My father arrived a few days later. He's not my kid. When Lisa was 2 years old, her mother, Brennan, had several jobs just to support them. While Jobs, the father, didn't help, they later lived in a room of a house where women come if they're considering adoption. Jobs denied that Lisa was his, that's why he didn't pay any child support. After a DNA test, it unsurprisingly turned out that it was his, and he had to pay $385 a month, which he increased to $500 until she was 18. The case finalized on December 8, 1980, 4 days later after Apple went public, and Jobs was worth more than $200 million. He asked 3-year-old Lisa, "Do you know who I am?" Which Lisa replied with, "No. I'm your father. I'm one of the most important people you will ever know." Years later, Lisa asked her dad, "Can I have it when you're done?" "Can you have what?" he said. "This car. Your Porsche." "Absolutely not," he said in such a sour, biting way that I knew I'd made a mistake. Before I made the move to get out, he turned to face me. "You're not getting anything," he said. "You understand? Nothing. You're getting nothing." Did he mean the car? Something else bigger? I didn't know. His voice hurt, sharp in my chest. Lisa asked her father about the car because she believed he would replace it whenever it got a scratch. I heard that when it gets a scratch, he buys a new one. With more bizarre things happening with the two of them, when Lisa went to live with her father and stepmother in 1990s. Because of Lisa got involved in clubs and other activities in high school, Jobs blamed her for not spending more time with the family. He insisted she could watch while he touched his wife sexually and mocked in front of her. It's really sad that the book was not about exposing her father, but a story about a daughter who just wanted to be appreciated and be loved by her father. Days before dying of pancreatic cancer in 2011, Jobs admitted to not spending enough time with his daughter when she was little. He repeatedly told Lisa in tears that, "I owe you one." Jobs also finally revealed the reason for ignoring Lisa for 10 years, as he was upset about not invited to her introductory day at Harvard. The mother of Lisa had told media that Jobs had apologized many times for his behavior to her and Lisa, and how he was very sorry for not taking responsibility when he should have. In the end, Jobs left Lisa a multi-million-dollar inheritance. During the early days at Apple, there was an incident where Steve Jobs stabbed his partner and co-founder Steve Wozniak in the back. It happened when they developed the Breakout game for Atari, a company who sold arcade games. They had agreed to split the payment equally with a 50-50 arrangement. However, Jobs manipulated the situation. Atari paid the sum of $5,000 for the game, but instead of being honest with Wozniak, Jobs told him that the owner received $700. As a result, Wozniak ended up taking home $350. While Jobs secretly kept the remaining $4,650 for himself. It broke his best friend's heart, but wanted not to blame Steve and saying, "Everybody is going to have cases where they did something bad to somebody, said something nasty to them, and maybe regret it later." Now moving to China, Apple has sweatshops where workers are paid little as $1 an hour. The factory is located in Shenzhen, where 13 young workers tried to commit suicide by jumping off the roof. 14 died and 3 survived, with the youngest being 17. Even if the lowest earners do the maximum available overtime of 80 hours per month, they still do not earn enough to pay tax, with some workers working a 24-hour shift while others were forced to stand for their entire shifts. Now they installed suicide nets around the warehouse for preventing stressed workers to find a way out. This led to the violent worker protests at the largest Apple factory in China in 2022. You can clearly see how the police are beating the workers, with some bleeding from the heads and others limping away from the chaotic clashes. The protest broke out because Apple's manufacturing partner attempted to deny bonuses promised to the new workers put into quarantine. The protest showed that workers were unhappy because the factory couldn't stop the spread of COVID-19, and they were also not happy with their living conditions. They were afraid of getting infected with the virus. The protest also made people worry about Apple's supply chain because they rely heavily on Foxconn.